Some artists become successful, others define a generation. But there are artists so influential that when they disappear, the entire industry seems to lose its direction. And that's the case with Rihanna. It's been almost a decade since the singer's last album, and in the meantime, dozens of others have emerged. Trends have come and gone, but the feeling remains the same.
I tell you that I will work my best to be the most successful artist that I can be in 5 years.
But the question we are going to try to answer in this video is the following. Why do people miss Rihanna so much? In music, in pop culture, in R&B, in hip-hop, in trap, in short, in many areas. And of course, I won't miss the chance to go through several of the singer's nostalgic hits. So stay tuned to the video so you don't miss anything. But before that, what's up Action Crew? If you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. Subscribe, like, and turn on notifications. The link to the t-shirt store will appear below, as well as some products, whether related to Rihanna or not. You'll probably like them and you'll be helping me out here. So let's get started because we have a lot to talk about today for real. Robin Rihanna Fenty was born in February 1988 in Bridgetown, Barbados. And please, let's not embarrass ourselves by saying that Rihanna is American, okay? She grew up in an environment that seemed way too far from the Hollywood spotlight. Her childhood was shaped by Caribbean music, from reggae to dancehall, but also by a tough reality. At home, she had to deal with her father's addiction and temper. Plus, she had to work from a young age alongside her father to help out at home. Man, for Rihanna, singing always seemed like an outlet. And as you probably already figured out, she had a really poor childhood. She didn't pay for singing lessons since she had no money, and she didn't attend any prestigious art schools. None of that, man. She just sang for the sake of singing, but what really stood out was her vocal personality, you know? In the beginning of her career, her singing was kind of raw, kind of metallic, and that impressed anyone who listened.
And then a hero comes along.
But the year was 2003, and the music producer Ivan Rogers, who had already worked with names like Christina Aguilera, for example, he was on vacation on the island of Barbados. Through local contacts, he had the opportunity to listen to a trio of girls who were looking for a chance in music, and among those girls was Rihanna, right there in the middle. But at the moment of the girls' audition, Ivan Rogers said even in later interviews that the other two just stopped existing. He only had eyes for the young Robin. Rob was only 15 years old and they sang the song Emotions by Destiny's Child. But Ivan Rogers even said that when he looked at Rihanna, he said she had a superstar aura. And that he was lucky to have found a diamond in the rough, and he was ready to help polish it. So guys, what happened after that? The producer didn't waste any time. He recorded some tapes of Rihanna and took them with him to the United States, and the tape ended up in the hands of the newly appointed president of Def Jam Records, who was none other than Jay-Z. And here's a detail, guys. One of those songs that Ivan produced and that reached Jay-Z was Faro Fenta. As you may have seen in part 2 of the Jay-Z documentary, where I told a bit of this story, Jay-Z, when he heard that song sung in Rihanna's voice, he was a bit skeptical. That's because he could already see that it was a super hit. That song was really good and was going to be very successful. And if he bet on Rihanna with that song right away and she became successful, maybe it would be really hard for her to repeat that success with other tracks. In other words, his fear was that she would be a one-hit wonder, meaning someone who only has one hit. But even so, he invited Rihanna and her mother to go to his office in New York for an in-person audition. For him and for L.A. Reid, who was present at the time, Rihanna's performance there was so overwhelming that L.A. Reid himself went up to Jay-Z and said, "Man, look, if I were you, I wouldn't let this girl leave this office without a signed contract." And Jay-Z did exactly that. At 2 in the morning, they signed the contract. And man, this is where the story begins. That's because that young girl went from being Robin Fenty from Barbados to becoming Rihanna, or Rihanna, right? for us here in Brazil. The year was 2005 and the music industry was in a golden age. In the search for the next great voice of R&B and pop, the record labels were competing to see who could deliver the best singer, like for example Rihanna's label or Sierra, who we've already talked about in her video. Another one that had Tia Marie, another one, Amery. Anyway, there were a lot of singers out there, but the standard was clear. They had to deliver vocals, choreography, sensuality, abs, a bunch of things like that. It's in this context and with these compositions that Def Jam officially released Sponge Replay with the music video, which is awesome, by Rihanna, which by the way is one of my favorite songs of hers. The song was an instant hit and ended up reaching number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. And right after that came Rihanna's first studio album called Music of the Sun. The album was a reflection of many things she had experienced and also had musical influences from her Caribbean island, right? Man, it's impossible to listen to Music of the Sun and not be instantly transported to Barbados, even if you've never set foot there. But behind the scenes, the industry machine, as you guys know, I talk about it a lot in my videos, right? Was starting to work to try to shape that young 17-year-old girl. They wanted her to be just like the other girls who were coming up at that time. But a comparison started gaining more traction, that she was imitating Beyoncé. Man, I say this because I remember seeing several interviews early in Rihanna's career where people criticized her, saying she was a carbon copy of Beyoncé and that she wanted to copy her. Rihanna explained it had nothing to do with that. She was just an inspiration, like Mariah Carey, whom she also often mentioned. Anyway, every singer that came up, either they made it a competition or they said one was copying the other. But even so, Rihanna managed to captivate the audience with her songs, which were really different. In this very album, Music of the Sun, there's the legendary classic, If It's Loving That You Want. Thank you TikTok for reviving this song and giving it the recognition it deserved in 2005. Many people from my generation didn't know this track. From then on, man, she got so popular in the United States that she started showing up on TV shows and in movies too. I remember she was in that movie Bring It On, All or Nothing, around 2005 or 2006, which was actually starring Solange Knowles, who is Beyoncé's sister. In that movie, she sang Pon de Replay. I remember that was back in 2006 when she was becoming more mainstream. Rihanna released her second album called A Girl Like Me, and all the singles from that album were played everywhere. On MTV, VH1 Mix TV, it played on the radio, it was on video tracks, man. The songs from that album were really popular. Get ready for some nostalgia. The first single was the song SOS, which, man, was a huge hit, and it reached number 1 on the Hot 100, meaning it was Rihanna's first number 1 on the Hot 100. SOS. The single is the song Unfaithful, which was written by Neo and also marks their first successful collaboration together. And bro, ironically or interestingly, I mean, speaking of this song, it was inspired by the album Fallen by Evanescence, because it has that rock vibe, that kind of mysterious, kind of dramatic feel, big piano, you know? But actually it's about a woman who cheats on her boyfriend and then regrets it. And I remember that a lot of girls used to put this song on their Orkut profiles. I don't know why. The third single is We Ride, a perfect R&B track. The album's fourth and final single was Break It Off with Sean Paul, who was very popular then and even more famous than Rihanna. So, who was afraid that Rihanna would be a one-hit wonder and had to keep quiet after this era? But even after this success, it still seemed like Rihanna was boxed in. She seemed like one of those artists manufactured in a lab. And like Jay-Z, Def Jam, and all of Rihanna's hardcore fans noticed that she had something different, but the industry kept asking her to keep making perfect pop and R&B, more hip-hop, you know, something palatable. And man, she had so much more to show, and that was already clear back then. But for her to really show her potential, she had to become the industry's bad girl. That's when, in 2007, the album Good Girl Gone Bad came out, meaning the good girl who turned bad. And the calling card of that album was the song Umbrella, which for sure everyone here knows. This song was created on the GarageBand app for iPhone and it was written by The Dream. You can stand under my umbrella. It got passed around to a lot of people, you know? Including Tayo Cruz, Mary J. Blige and Britney Spears. Everyone turned down this track, until it got to Rihanna, who recorded it and man, turned it into one of the classics of the 2000s. The song stayed at the top of the Billboard Hot 100 for 7 consecutive weeks and dominated charts all over the world, turning the umbrella into the ultimate symbol of 2007 party pop. But the real power of Good Girl Gone Bad is that Rihanna didn't just depend on success, you know? Because man, this album had a lot of good songs that defined the sound aesthetic of the late 2000s. For example, the pop, dance and 70s energy of the song Don't Stop the Music. It expanded on Michael Jackson's style. In fact, Michael Jackson and Rihanna were sued. At the time when Don't Stop the Music was sued by the original writer of the song that included that part, right? The one that has this part. But anyway, everything was resolved and today the song is a classic. Followed by the melancholic R&B of Hate That I Love You, another collaboration between Rihanna and Ne-Yo. There was vibrant pop rock there with Shut Up and Drive, which man, she released right after Umbrella. I get why, but honestly man, it wasn't one of my favorites from that time.
Shut up and drive. Shut up and drive.
But for me, the real hit of this album is the song Rehab, which features a collaboration with Justin Timberlake. Now ladies, gimme that. It was exactly at this moment of her meteoric professional rise that Rihanna's personal life started to take over the spotlight. That's because she started dating the new prince of R&B and dance phenomenon, Chris Brown. Everyone was already kind of suspicious that the two of them were having a fling. After that performance at the 2007 VMA Awards where Chris Brown performed and danced to Wall and Rihanna appeared singing Umbrella, everyone said, there's some chemistry there, huh? I mentioned this in the Chris Brown video, but it's worth repeating for the media and public. They were the perfect couple. Young, incredibly talented, charismatic, and on top of the world. And on top of the Billboard Hot 100 too. They were the royalty of modern black music, but their chemistry went beyond the music scene, right? In fact, Chris Brown even helped Rihanna professionally, right? The song Disturbia, which appears on the album Good Girl Gone Bad Reloaded, the deluxe version of the album she released, was originally written for Chris Brown's album Exclusive, but he ended up giving it to Rihanna. And the result, man, #1 on the Hot 100, that's it! With this deluxe edition, she repeated the formula with the song Take a Bow, which is another hit written by Ne-Yo. And man, this one also ended up at the top of the Billboard Hot 100. And do you think she only reached #1 with her own songs? Haha, man, Rihanna's guest features were also hits, you know? Just like the song Live Your Life by T.I., which features Rihanna. And I've already talked about this song in the T.I. video. Another #1 for Rihanna. Man, you have no idea what that was like, dude. It was like any song an artist released nowadays would immediately go to #1 on the global Spotify charts. But anyway, the whole world was at Rihanna's feet. She had the perfect relationship, massive success, and the respect of an industry that had even tried to mold her. But that spotlight came at a very high cost in February 2009. You probably already sense what's coming next. On the morning of February 8th, the world woke up shocked. That's because Rihanna and Chris Brown cancelled their performances at the Grammys just a few hours before the event. The reason wasn't a scheduling conflict, it was a serious case of domestic violence. After an argument in the car caused by jealousy, Chris Brown assaulted Rihanna. The case escalated from a celebrity scandal to an instant international tragedy, but Rihanna's suffering didn't stop there, you know what I mean? That's because a few days later, a photo of her taken by the police was leaked, in which her face is, Well, you know. And then, man, that photo went around the world because the gossip site TMZ bought it, dude, and it went viral. From that moment on, man, Rihanna's pain was turned into a spectacle, man. She didn't even have time to process her own pain. Many industry analysts declared the end of both their careers. Chris Brown for what he did, and Rihanna because of the stigma of becoming the symbol of a tragedy. It's the same thing I said in the Chris Brown video, man. In this case, nobody won, and the psychological impact of that on Rihanna was profound. She had to isolate herself for months without showing up. And with that, she had to deal with public judgment, like the court case that sentenced Breezy to 5 years of probation, and also with the tough process of rebuilding her own identity. I believe the industry expected Rihanna to come back sad, tearful, or even dwelling on that case, until she said enough, you know? But what they got was something a bit different from her. In my opinion, man, she chose raw fury and brutal honesty to talk about it. So, she locked herself in the studio for pretty much all of 2009, and in November 2009, she showed up. Musically speaking, commercial pop was giving way to the darker sound of Rated R, the album where she would take control of her own narrative and show the world that she wouldn't be defined as a victim, but as a survivor. Man, really inspired by rock, super heavy, really intense, seriously heavy. It made a lot of people turn up their noses at Rihanna at the time because they expected catchy, poppy, bubblegum songs from her. But this work was very mature, and the first single already showed that, with another songwriting contribution from Neo. Russian Roulette, which was, by the way, a mix of R&B with a ballad vibe, and man, it was really claustrophobic. You felt nervous just watching the music video, you know what I mean? And it talked about, of course, abusive relationships.
And you can see my heart.
But then she went more mainstream with the song Hard, which in my opinion went unnoticed here in Brazil, but not in my phone's playlist. Just like Wait Your Turn.
You don't wanna wait. I hate to hear that's such a
Rockstar, which... a vibe caribenha da Rihanna. Look, reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, which was the song Rude Boy. At that time, there was some criticism towards Rihanna because she was having success with a song that talked about her wanting a tough guy, and after everything she went through. It seemed kind of inconsistent, but man, Rihanna is Rihanna, and if that was her intention, she turned it into something worth millions of dollars. Now guys, I need to make some honorable mentions to this album rated R. The first one is the song Te Amo. This track leaked during a time when Rihanna was missing from the spotlight, and a lot of people liked it right away because it was something different, with a kind of tango vibe, Argentine, Spanish, I don't know. And there was also the demo by the original songwriter James Fauntleroy, which also ended up leaking. And I've heard stories that this song almost didn't make it onto the album, but fortunately it made it to the final version and was a hit in several countries, including here in Brazil. Honorable mention number 2. Man, Rihanna was featured on Jay-Z's album The Blueprint 3, and there, alongside Jay-Z and Kanye West. And together they created one of the most, for me, legendary songs of 2009, which was the track Run This Town. It's hard to do that. My grandma used to say nothing helps you forget an old love like a new one. And it's around that time that Rihanna starts being seen with none other than Drake, one of the most hyped rappers of that time. And man, he was just starting to get really famous. The chemistry between the two didn't take long to move from the paparazzi's cameras to the recording studios. This musical and personal partnership ended up becoming the perfect fuel for what was coming next. And with that vibe, Rihanna was already ready to change her focus. She changed her hair, dyed it red, and started taking the first steps into her new musical era. The world had already understood her pain, but now it was time for her to celebrate her freedom. And then, in 2010, she released one of the brightest and most colorful albums of her career, Loud. and it was time to turn up the volume, man! The kickoff was with the song Only Girl in the World, a pop song mixed with Eurodance, hip-hop and R&B that blew up on the dance charts and on the Hot 100 chart. Rihanna scores another #1 and a Grammy. Without giving the world time to catch its breath from this success, she already released the second single, What's My Name, her collaboration with Drake. And there it is, another #1 on the Hot 100. If I remember right, What's My Name hit #1 before Only Girl in the World, and they kept replacing each other. Comment below if I'm just having age-related daydreams or if this really happened. But what really happened is that music video with the two of them, S&M, in case you don't remember, this song was banned in several countries because of its masochistic content, right? And it ended up becoming really popular because of the remix with Britney Spears. And I won't even tell you what happened, but it was #1 for Rihanna. There was the reggae track Man Down. This one was never banned here at home, honestly, but in the rest of the world, that video caused a lot of controversy. That video, man. And to close out the era, there was the ballad California King Bad. I never really liked this song, but some people did, because in this track, Rihanna really showed off her vocals. And anyone who said she couldn't sing had to shut up here. No, man, there was Cheers, Drink to That, which also sampled I'm With You by Avril Lavigne. Yeah, hey, yeah, hey, yeah, hey, yeah. Speaking of collaborations, here's another comparison from that time. One of the most famous ones from that era was when Eminem invited Rihanna to collaborate on a song with him. Legend has it that the rapper wanted to talk about toxic, abusive relationships on his new album, and so on. Skylar Grey, who's an old partner of Eminem, and you probably know that because I mention it all the time here on this channel, she wrote a track that Eminem later thought would sound better with Rihanna's voice, and also because of everything she had been through. Man, it would make a lot of sense for her to sing it. And that's how Love the Way You Lie was created. I won't even mention its Hot 100 position, but it was Rihanna's #1. Just gonna stand there and watch me burn. A way of being an outspoken artist back then. And I also need to give an honorable mention to one more song here, which is Who's That Chick? That's the song by David Guetta featuring Riri. I remember there was a lot of talk back then because Rihanna said something like, why are you all hyping up this song so much, man? Like, it's just another song, you know? A lot of people thought she was dismissing the song, but I don't think so. Then Rihanna closed out 2011 as the biggest pop star on the planet, proving that she could move between pop, dance, R&B and reggae with incredible ease. Man, she had the world in her hands, the charts and a work pace that seemed superhuman. By the way, who doesn't remember when she landed here in Brazil to sing at Rock in Rio 2011? If you were there, comment below because I wasn't. Damn guys, less than a year later, after the release of Loud, Rihanna would release her newest album, Talk That Talk, which was really boosted by the song We Found Love, which was a collaboration between her and DJ Calvin Harris. The song wasn't just a commercial success that spent 10 weeks at #1 on the Hot 100. It became the definitive anthem of the EDM generation of that decade. In fact, EDM was one of the most played genres in the 2010s, and I've already talked about this in the Avic video, which is here on the channel. If you want, take a look there because we explain a little better the rise of this movement. Talk That Talk also featured another Rihanna collaboration with Jay-Z, besides Umbrella, which was the title track of Talk That Talk. The catchy pop song is You Da One, which for me is also one of Rihanna's best songs. For those who like choreography with electronic beats, there was Where Have You Been? Where have you? But why Rihanna's songs were playing on every corner, every bakery, every station, and every smart fit you walked into, the singer's personal life was heading in a very different direction. The intense partnership with Drake, which seemed to be heading towards something more serious, gradually started to cool off. The distance between them became clear in the song Take Care from Drizzy's album. At the same time that the public was a bit upset about this, because people were already shipping the two of them, they got really upset when they found out, through some rumors, that Rihanna was probably getting closer to Chris Brown. What started with discreet interactions on Twitter ended up with the release of joint remixes in 2012. She was featured on his song Turn Up the Music, he was featured on her song Birthday Cake, anyway it was a whole mix-up. And the industry didn't know how to react to the decisions Rihanna was making. A lot of people said it was controversial, other people said she was setting a bad example, others said she was her own person, free to do whatever she wanted with her life. What was important for us to know is that Rihanna didn't care at all about the judgments from fans, haters, the press, whoever it was that wanted to say anything good or bad about her life, she just didn't care. It was also around this time that Rihanna started planting some seeds for the empire that for some people would kind of overshadow her singing career. Fashion. Okay, I'm not going to say she never had a thing with fashion back in the 2000s, because she always did, but I think from around 2011, 2012, that really started to get a lot stronger. Always seen as a style icon with ever-changing looks, she kind of decided that she didn't just want to wear clothes from big brands and designers, she kind of wanted to create her own clothes. In 2011, she signed her first capsule collection with the Armani brand, and soon after, in 2012, she debuted on British television as the executive producer of the reality show Style to Rock, focused on discovering new designers. That was the beginning of a quiet transition. I could also say that Rihanna was realizing her creativity was too big to stay only in the music industry. But she still had a traditional cycle to complete in music. Then at the end of 2012, in November, because I remember she released it close to my birthday, she released another album, which was the famous Unapologetic. It was kind of Rihanna saying like, man, I don't need to apologize to anyone, okay? Let's agree that this was her 7th album in 7 years, meaning 1 album per year. And this was already becoming a meme on the internet. Every November, people expected Rihanna to release something. Every year, people would say that Rihanna was going to come out with another pop album. Every year, the same thing, the same talk. But little did the world know that she was working on one of the most agonizing hiatuses in entertainment history. The album opened with the track Diamonds, which shined its way to the top of the Hot 100, turning that #1 spot into something dazzling and inspiring for people. In fact, Diamonds was written by Sia. Sia's demo is also quite famous. And the internet. Well, that's it. But this album also featured Rihanna's signature ballads like the song Stay, which was a collaboration between her and Mickey Echo. But this album would also include the controversial song Nobody's Business, which is her collaboration with Chris Brown. I've already talked about how controversial this song was in several videos here, because it was the two of them basically saying that yes, they got back together, yeah, we really did get back together, and that's nobody's business. This made the internet go crazy, saying that Rihanna was the kind of woman who sticks with a thug and that she had no shame. The judgments during this era were more directed at Rihanna than at Chris Brown. Okay, their relationship, their getting back together, didn't last very long, but honestly, people were really hard on them. But this album also brought some heavy trap, which I think up until then, not many people had done, right? That was the song Pour Up. And the final single was What Now? Unfortunately, it wasn't very successful, but it's one of the songs I like. But now... Honorable mentions to songs from Unapologetic. The first one for me is Fresh Out the Runway, which a lot of people didn't care about, didn't know, but it became really famous when Rihanna sang this song at the Victoria's Secret fashion show. Do you remember that? And then, man, what actually went viral were Justin Bieber's reactions watching Rihanna walking at the end of this song, just like the Victoria's Secret models. But what I really think, man, is that when Rihanna was walking, I was thinking, damn, I'm going to create my own Victoria's Secret, man. And that's something that actually happened years later. Honorable mention 2 is Right Now, which I expected to be a single since it featured David Guetta. It was great, but ended up flying under the radar. With Unapologetic, Rihanna got her first #1 album on the Billboard 200 and won more Grammys. Man, she had reached the absolute pinnacle of success in the global music industry. She was the absolute queen and was really the singer who set the rules of that game. But releasing an album every year, doing exhausting world tours, and living under the relentless scrutiny of tabloids and social media had taken its toll. Rihanna's exhaustion was starting to get real. But even so, in 2013 she delivered one of the most memorable songs of that year, which was The Monster, another collaboration between her and Eminem. And at the beginning of 2014, she jumped on a feature with Shakira in the song Can't Remember to Forget You. But during that time, guys, it marked an era when there wasn't a Rihanna album in stores in November. The silence was a sign that she might have broken with a tradition she herself had created within her own body of work. So instead of racing against the clock, she bought the rights to all her old masters, left Def Jam, signed with Jay-Z's Rock Nation, finally became the owner of her own music, and broke free from commercial constraints. But in 2015, it became a testing ground for Rihanna and also for the fans themselves, who were already desperate to know what the new sound Rihanna would embrace on her famous R8 would be. Who remembers that phrase? Man, Rihanna started releasing singles that were completely different from everything else. Each one was different from the other, all of them were different from anything she had released before. She left the market stunned when she released the song 4 or 5 Seconds, which was a collaboration with Kanye West and Paul McCartney, written by Ty Dolla, as we already mentioned in the Ty Dolla video here on this channel. Then came the bold cinematic trap sound, and I think Rihanna really wanted to go in that direction, right? But anyway, who doesn't remember the event that was the release of the song Bitch Better Have My Money? Money? And to wrap up the test, she released the minimalist, patriotic and conceptual American Oxygen. One of these songs was connected to them, and the audience didn't know what she planned for the new album. While music was going through this period of experimentation, someone started to orbit around Rihanna a little more frequently. His name is A$AP Rocky. Well, Rihanna and A$AP Rocky had known each other for years. He had opened the shows for the Diamond World Tour in 2013 and they had shared the stage at the VMAs. But starting in 2015, the aesthetic connection and friendship between the two began to attract media attention at fashion shows and social events. Rocky, long known as one of the most stylish men in hip-hop, formed a bond with Rihanna that went well beyond fashion, and you know how it ended, right? But speaking of music, after discarding almost all the material she had built in 2015, in 2016 Rihanna was ready to release her next famous studio album, R8. R8, see? I even said it with an American accent. She even started using the name R8 for it, and even joked about it online, repeating R8. Many people thought that really was the album's name. But in January 2016, the world finally got to know Anti, the album that would redefine Rihanna's place in music history, without exaggeration. After an accidental leak on Jay-Z's platform Tidal, the world was shocked by what they were hearing. Rihanna had delivered an album completely opposed to the traditional pop that made her famous. There was no Umbrella, SOS, or Only Girl. None of that was there. There was something completely conceptual, and I dare say she was the first of this era to release a conceptual album. After that, several singers released albums at that level. Anti was a dense, smoky, raw and artistically ambitious album, focused on alternative R&B, soul, lo-fi textures and so on. And for me, it was the ultimate proof that Rihanna no longer cared about churning out radio-friendly fluff. She wanted to create art on her own terms. Well, the result is that the album became an instant cultural phenomenon. The lead single from Anti, Work, another collaboration between Rihanna and Drake, was a global phenomenon. A lot of it was because it brought back Rihanna's Caribbean roots from Music of the Sun, remember? And man, you won't believe where that song landed on the Hot 100. Yeah, number 1, where it stayed for 9 weeks. Don't give me alo. But of course, there were people who liked other singles from the album, like for example, Love on the Brain, which, man, stood out as one of the biggest vocal milestones in Rihanna's career, even without having a music video to call its own. Must she be? We had more psychedelic trap with the song Needed Me. That one has a music video, by the way, and it's cinematic. It's and also for me, this one, yes, the best Rihanna song, which is Kiss It Better. Man, the guitar in this song, the black and white music video, dude, it's all top notch. By the way, speaking of guitar, this song marks a milestone. Well, not exactly a milestone, but it becomes more evident, right? Rihanna's partnership with Nuno Bittencourt, who, for those who don't know, was from the 80s band Extreme, the one that sings More Than Words. Man, Nuno Bittencourt and Rihanna, dude, that's crazy. And there was also a hypnotic cover of Tame Impala with the song Same Old Mistakes. Honorable mention here for Consideration, which was a song by SZA that she ended up giving to Rihanna, and the two ended up collaborating on it, and this song is really good. This album was highly acclaimed by the music industry, earning Rihanna multiple Grammy nominations and consolidating her status not only as a pop celebrity, but as an elite artist respected for her vision and boldness. That year, she won the Michael Jackson Video Vanguard Award at the 2016 MTV VMAs. Yes, the one that Drake gives to her, then Drake tries to kiss her on the mouth, and she turns her face away, and Drake gets really embarrassed, it turns into a mess. Anyway, we've already talked about this in the Drake video, but the point there is that her immense cultural impact on music and the pop industry as a whole was celebrated. It seemed like the VMA was predicting what was about to happen, right? But in 2017 and 2018, Rihanna gave people little tastes of her music, actually through guest features on songs that may have gone gold. Like her joining forces again with Calvin Harris on the song This Is What You Came For. She set the American Summer on fire with her collaboration with DJ Khaled and Bryson Tiller on the song Wild Thoughts. And she won more Grammys by lending her vocals to the track Loyalty by Kendrick Lamar. Loyalty. Loyalty. These collaborations made one thing clear to me, guys. Rihanna didn't need an album to be successful, she just needed a verse. It was in September 2017 that she really turned the page, channeling her genius into the beauty industry with the launch of Fenty Beauty. Then, Rihanna entered the market with something the makeup industry had never really offered before. 40 shades of foundation. Different foundations for different skin types, including for black girl skin, which was something revolutionary. This was called the Fenty effect, forcing the entire global cosmetics industry to become inclusive. Rihanna wasn't just a singer putting her name on products, she was a revolutionary entrepreneur. Soon after came the lingerie line, Savage Fenty, and the luxury brand with the LVMH group, I don't know how to say that, sorry, turning the girl from Barbados into a self-made billionaire. While Rihanna's business life was taking up most of her time, the so-called R9, which would be Rihanna's 9th album, started to become a meme on the internet. And her relationship with A$AP Rocky started to bear fruit, with the arrival of her first children. Far from the toxic spotlight of the past, the two built a life partnership based on mutual respect, a passion for fashion, and real companionship, showing that Rihanna had finally found her safe haven. That's it.
It's my man.
Yeah! Yeah!
Baby daddy. That's up that.
No, but fate was preparing a monumental comeback for the Queen of Barbados. The year was 2022, and Rihanna was about to break the internet once again for two very different reasons. The first was motherhood, and the second was the Super Bowl. In February 2023, the whole world tuned in to their TVs, expecting that to be the official announcement of her definitive return to the stage, or the release of the so-called R9. On top of floating platforms and wearing a red jumpsuit, Rihanna showed off her biggest hits, right? Her greatest songs and her big pregnant belly with her second child, which would mean for the fans an even longer waiting period. And also at that same time, she was competing for scored the Oscar for Best Original Song with the song Lift Me Up, which was the soundtrack for the movie Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Lift me up, lift me. And guys, I don't even think I need to say what happened after 2023, 2024, 2025, because it was just Rihanna breaking records, getting even richer than she already is, yeah, breaking some musical records like, man, even without releasing anything, she's still really on top. And man, if you like numbers and charts, this moment is all yours. Rihanna became the first female artist in Spotify history to have 10 songs with over 1 billion streams each. She also established herself as the female artist with the most platinum and diamond single certifications in RIAA history, accumulating over 160 million sales units in the United States alone. She is also one of the artists with the most number ones on the Hot 100 in history. Nowadays, Rihanna has 14 number ones, putting her in a tie with Drake and Taylor Swift. And behind those three, there are only the Beatles, who I think have 20, and Mariah Carey, who has 19. By the way, like I said at the beginning of the video, Mariah Carey was an early influence on Rihanna. The truth is, man, Rihanna's catalog doesn't age, you know, it renews itself. While current artists have to work hard every week to keep their numbers high, Rihanna's hits keep generating billions of plays organically, every single day, proving that her relevance doesn't depend on new releases, but on the unchanging legacy she created in music. The truth is, everyone, and answering the big question of this video, Rihanna is missed these days because she was the kind of artist who showed up to change the entire dynamic of the music industry. When the market was going one way, Rihanna made a point of going the other way. And when she decided to embrace a certain trend, man, she made it look like it was 100% hers. Like she was the one who created it, you know? She moved through R&B, pop, dancehall, reggae, rock, EDM, and even alternative music without ever losing her identity. She never had to choose between evolving and still being Rihanna. Maybe that's why so many artists emerged after 2016, and the feeling is always the same. No one has managed to fill the place that Rihanna left. Because the void she left and still lives is not just the absence of just any singer, it's the absence of someone who set the pace of culture. And maybe the most curious thing of all is that more than 10 years after the last album, it still feels like we're waiting for her to come back so we can find out what the next chapter in music will be remembered for. Older lady, and you're about to.
Remember it as Rihanna. Remember it as being the artist from the Caribbean who came here and made it internationally. But
that's what I think, and I wanted to know what you all think, guys. Do you also really miss Rihanna as a musician? Don't you miss her? Is there anyone who replaced her? Anyone you think will replace her? Anyway, leave all your comments below because I want to know your opinion. That's it for now. I'm signing off. Big hug from Gerson Saldanha. See you in our next video. And thanks.